Hello, my dear masterminds. If you ever saw yourself the way they see you, my dear, you wouldn't question your worth for another second. You wouldn't doubt your power, your presence, your instincts, or the way a room shifts the moment you walk through it. You'd finally understand why people hesitate when they speak to you, why their voice changes, why their energy glitches for a split second, why they go quiet after you answer a question with 3 calm words. Because in their story, you're not the side character. You're not the background NPC. You're not the maybe one day friend or the disposable extra. No, in their mind, you are the blueprint they measure themselves against. The standard they'll never reach, the original they try to copy but can't replicate. You influence people without opening your mouth. You inspire them by simply existing, and that creates unease in them, not because you're trying to, not because you're showing off. It's because there's something original about you, something they can't categorize, can't duplicate, can't reverse engineer with normal logic. You move with a certain gravity, a depth, a knowing. And people who aren't used to authentic strength mistake it for arrogance. They think you're unreachable because they can't reach your frequency. They think you're complex because they've only known simple. They think you're quiet because they don't understand the power of someone who doesn't need noise to set the standard. They study you. They monitor you. They glance at you when you're not looking. They replay your reactions in their head, trying to decode your approach, your style, your energy, your methods. And the part that creates the most unease in them, they can study all they want. They'll never be able to replicate what came from your unique journey. Your silence was your strategy, not your weakness. In their eyes, you're the template, the reference point, the measuring stick, the person they pull up when they need to remind themselves what real looks like. You're the reminder that real strength doesn't announce itself. It emanates. Real power doesn't perform, it presides. Real presence doesn't chase, it commands. They pretend they're not watching, but their body language exposes them every time. They mimic your tone when you're not around. They adopt your phrases months later. They shift their style after seeing yours. They compare themselves to you constantly. They wonder how you always seem to set trends without even trying. They can't see the challenges you've fought privately. They can only feel the aftermath of someone shaped through pressure, appearing in their ordinary little world. If you saw yourself through their eyes for even 5 seconds, you'd understand why they copy, why they study, why they orbit, why they mimic, why they talk about you constantly but can't quite capture your essence. You'd understand that you're not a source of unease because you're a threat. You're a blueprint, the kind that shows them what they could be if they had your courage, your journey, your truth. And that's why, in their story, you don't just appear out of nowhere. You appear exactly when they need a reminder of what authentic looks like. When people talk about you, they never admit the real reason they act strange around you. They'll blame your confidence, your style, your choices, your path, anything that sounds socially acceptable. But deep down, they know the truth. They didn't just meet you. They met their standard. You became the measuring stick they compare every decision to. Something about your presence, your calm, your awareness, your authenticity made them realize how much of themselves they'd compromised. That's why they react the way they do. That's why they stutter. That's why they take notes. That's why they watch you out of the corner of their eye. They're trying to figure out how someone like you exists in a world full of people who copy each other in circles, never landing on an original thought. You have that mirror effect, the kind that forces people to see their own limitations, their own shortcuts, their own lack of originality, their own unease with standing alone, and nobody likes seeing that reflection. Especially not people who've built their entire personality on being a slightly better version of someone else's idea. So what do? They label you as too different, too confident, too independent, too hard to figure out. But all those labels are just translations for one thing. You make me uneasy because you remind me I'm still following someone else's blueprint. You're the blueprint in their story because you expose what they're not, without even trying. Their borrowed confidence unravels around you. Their copied personas fade. Their recycled habits look obvious. Their secondhand opinions become embarrassing. Their unease shows. Their ego realizes it's been performing. They can feel you operating from a place of authenticity they've never accessed. They can feel your energy coming from a source they can't tap into. They can feel your presence rooted in something earned, not borrowed. Not because you're arrogant, but because you've built your identity through challenges, through obstacles they never even knew you endured. Most people only meet others who are variations of the same template, same unease, same references, same borrowed confidence, same recycled thoughts. But when they met you, they met someone who built themselves from scratch, someone who evolved without a manual, someone who learned through lived experience, someone who grew beyond imitation. And that's why you unsettle them. Because you represent an original they could never become. No matter how many traits they try to borrow, you don't react like they expect. You don't get affected when they test you. You don't need their approval when they withhold it. You don't follow. You don't copy. You don't conform. Your authenticity feels unsettling to them. Your originality feels like quiet rebellion. Your independence feels like reflection. And your silence feels like depth, even when you're not comparing yourself to anyone. If you saw yourself through their eyes, you'd finally understand why they keep you close while secretly studying your every move. You're not just another person in their life. You're the standard they measure themselves against. The original they wish they'd been brave enough to be. The truth they keep avoiding. The test of their own authenticity. You ever notice how the loudest voices suddenly get quiet when you enter? How the most confident people suddenly start explaining themselves when you're in the room? It's because you disrupt their performance. You don't respond the way copies respond. You don't fall for the recycled lines. You don't give them the validation they're looking for. You don't play into their borrowed personas. You don't explain yourself using their language. And worst of all, you don't need their world to make sense of yours. You are unreadable. And in a world full of people who built themselves by reading others, that makes you feel legendary. They don't know if you approve or disapprove. If you're impressed or indifferent, if you're aware of their imitation or simply unbothered. That uncertainty keeps them uneasy. People crave recognition from their reference points. They want to know you see them. They want to know they're close to your level. They want to know they've successfully copied the assignment. But you don't hand out grades. You don't acknowledge the imitation. You don't validate the performance. You stay in your own lane, and that lane was paved by you alone. And the deeper truth, you've lived too much to perform. You've learned too much to pretend. You've endured too much to cosplay strength. You learned early that authenticity is power, that being original is protection, that being yourself is the strategy. You became the blueprint in their story, not because you demanded to be, but because you carry an energy that can't be faked, bought, or borrowed. They copy because they can't create like you. They watch because they can't innovate like you. They study because they want to decode how you remain original in a world of repetition. When someone can't replicate you, they fixate on you. When they can't match you, they mimic you. When they can't understand you, they orbit you. And that fixation, it's not about you, it's about what you represent. You represent the courage to be original, the strength to stand alone, the confidence to be undefined. You represent freedom from needing to fit in. You represent the possibility they're too uneasy to chase. You represent the version of themselves they abandon to feel safe. That's why people switch up so fast. That's why they act different when you enter a room. That's why they treat you like something rare even though you're just being yourself. You are the blueprint because you challenge their borrowed existence just by being authentic. And they know, deep down, that every mask they wear would soften if they stood next to you too long. You don't have to call them out. Your authenticity alone highlights the performance. There's a moment, a very specific moment, when people finally understand who they're dealing with. It doesn't happen when you win. It doesn't happen when you speak. It doesn't happen when you prove yourself. It happens in the quiet, in the split second when your authentic presence outshines their entire performance. In the moment when they try to impress you and you remain centered. In the moment when they expect you to follow and you don't move an inch. In the moment when they try to make you feel small and you simply exist in your own magnitude. That's when it clicks for them. You were never in their competition. You were never trying to be like them. You were never following their template. You were never seeking their blueprint. You were simply being, and that's more powerful than anything they've been performing. Because they realized they weren't dealing with another copy. They were dealing with an original. Someone who operates from lived truth, not borrowed confidence. Someone who moves from authentic power, not performed strength. Someone who learned who they are, not from trends, not from crowds, not from validation, but from endurance, from silence, from rebuilding themselves when no one was watching. People feel uneasy around that kind of authenticity, the kind you can't study and replicate, the kind you can't shape, the kind you can't search for, the kind you can't buy. They thought they could decode you because you seemed calm. They thought you were simple because you didn't perform. They thought you were easy to understand because you didn't need complexity to feel deep. But when the truth hit, when they finally saw the depth you came from, everything shifted. Now they understand why your simplicity felt profound, why your calm felt earned, why your presence felt original, why your energy felt impossible to replicate. You don't perform because you don't need to. You don't explain because you don't owe anyone your journey. You don't compete because there's no one in your category. You don't compare because you built yourself, not borrowed yourself. And somewhere deep in their mind, a realization sets in. A realization they'll never say out loud. I've been trying to copy the wrong person. I thought I could imitate them, but they're an original. I thought I understood them, but I've never understood myself. That's when they switch up, not out of respect, not out of loyalty, but out of the humbling that comes from recognizing they just met someone who doesn't follow templates, someone who doesn't need validation, someone who walks with an aura built from truth, not performance. You are the awakening in their story, the person they couldn't copy no matter how hard they tried. You were the original in a world of remixes, the blueprint in a sea of drafts. People swear you changed, but that's not the truth. You didn't switch up. Their eyes opened. You've always been this authentic, this original, this grounded, this self-made. But they couldn't see any of that before because they were too busy projecting what they wanted you to be. They wanted you easier to read, they wanted you easier to copy, they wanted you predictable, they wanted you explainable, they wanted you simple enough to imitate and familiar enough to replicate. But then, something happened that they never saw coming. Their own attempts to copy you revealed how original you actually are. Their imitation highlighted your authenticity. Their performance revealed your truth. Their pretend layers highlighted your face. Their fakeness forced them to stare at the reality they tried to avoid. You were never playing their game. You were simply being yourself. And that's a level most people never reach. Now they see the things they ignored. The way you don't perform. The way you don't follow. The way you don't need trends to feel current. The way you don't need approval to feel valid. The way you can stand alone and still feel complete. The way you rebuild yourself from your own materials. The way you rise without imitating anyone else's path. These aren't traits you studied. These are traits you earned through trials they've never faced. And now that they finally see all this, they're overwhelmed, they're humbled, they're unsure. Because you didn't become original to impress them. You became yourself because anything else would have been a betrayal. You're the blueprint in their story because you've accessed depths they've only performed. You've built foundations they've only rented. You've strengthened wounds they've only covered. Your authenticity didn't come from wanting to be different. It came from refusing to be anyone but yourself. That's why your presence resonates like truth now. That's why your energy feels rare. That's why your aura feels like something they can't manufacture. They finally realize the person they tried to copy is the same person they can't replicate. The person they tried to understand is the same person who defies their categories. The person they thought they could mimic is the same person who remains irreplaceable. The person they dismissed as simple is the same person who became unrepeatable. And here's the part that truly humbles them. You didn't build yourself to be admired. You didn't craft yourself to be copied. You didn't create yourself to be a template. You simply became who you needed to be. And that authenticity became the blueprint others wish they had the courage to follow. You're not performing in their story. You're the lesson. You're the standard. You're the reminder that they've been living as drafts of other people's ideas. You didn't change. They just finally saw you without their projections. Their need to categorize, their unease with originality blocking the view. There's a version of you they always sensed but refused to acknowledge. The version that didn't need templates, didn't need permission, didn't need to fit in, didn't need anyone's path to walk. And even when they pretended not to notice, that version of you was already making them uneasy. They felt it before they understood it. They sensed it before they could name it. They knew you had something unrepeatable, something they couldn't study, couldn't borrow, couldn't manufacture. But they told themselves it wasn't real. They told themselves you were just lucky, naturally gifted, or born that way. Anything to avoid admitting that your authenticity came from choosing yourself over and over again, even when it was lonely. Because here's the truth they've been avoiding. You didn't come from a template. You didn't come from a manual. You didn't come from copying what worked for others. You came from trials, the kind that forces you to develop yourself from scratch. You came from silence, the kind that teaches you to trust your own voice. You came from isolation, the kind that shows you who you are when no one's watching. You came from endurance, the kind that builds authenticity others can only imitate. They can't compete with that. They can't replicate that. They can't pretend that in front of someone real, and you are the realest thing they've encountered. The minute someone performing meets someone authentic, the performance unravels. That's what happened when they met you. They didn't feel uneasy because of your confidence. They felt uneasy because of your authenticity. They didn't feel uneasy because of your strength. They felt uneasy because of your originality. They didn't feel uneasy because of your silence. They felt uneasy because of your self-awareness. They didn't feel uneasy about losing you. They felt uneasy about being revealed next to you. Because when someone like you walks in, everyone's true nature shows. The imitators look obvious. The performers get loud. The authentic ones get quiet. The unsure ones get defensive. And the real ones feel seen, because your presence feels like permission to be yourself. You are the blueprint in their story because you represent a level of self-authorship they've never reached. You don't perform, and that alone makes performers uneasy. You don't follow, and that makes followers spiral. You don't need validation, and that disrupts people who operate through approval. You don't hand out access, and that frustrates people who think proximity equals permission. They don't feel uneasy because of your past. They feel uneasy because of what your past built. They feel uneasy because you don't copy what works. You create what's true. They feel uneasy because you don't follow what's popular. You follow what's aligned. They feel uneasy because you don't get affected under pressure to conform. You strengthen. They feel uneasy because you walk through trend cycles like someone who's been themselves the entire time. And the most uncomfortable part for them, you see through everything. Not because you want to reveal them, but because you've met every version of pretend before. You know the performance. You know the borrowed confidence. You know the recycled personality. You know the curated image. And worst of all, you know when someone's performing versus being. You are not unreachable. You're incomparable. They've never met someone with your level of authenticity, self-awareness, originality, and groundedness in one quiet presence. And now they understand something they'll never admit. They weren't uneasy about losing you. They were uneasy about you showing them what authentic looks like. The interesting part about all of this, they were never uneasy about you being powerful. They were uneasy about you being real. As long as you performed like everyone else, they felt comfortable. As long as you followed the script, they felt stable. As long as you borrowed confidence, they felt superior. But the moment you started being undeniably yourself, the moment you stopped performing, the moment you stopped caring about fitting their mold, that's when everything shifted. That's why they watch now without speaking. That's why they whisper your name like a symbol, not a person. You didn't just level up, you became incomparable. You didn't just endure, you became the standard. You didn't just rise, you became the blueprint. And the truth is simple. They never felt uneasy about losing you. They felt uneasy about never becoming you. But now they're face to face with the original, the authentic you, the you who finally knows your own worth. And once you stand in that truth, you don't chase, you create. You don't follow, you lead. You don't copy, you originate. You don't ask for recognition, you become undeniable. If you ever saw yourself the way purpose sees you, you'd walk through every room like the original. They could never replicate. The one they can't copy. The one they can't replace. The one they can't misunderstand anymore. Because now they know. Now they see it. Now they feel it. You're not the blueprint in their story. You're the original in yours. Hello, my dear warriors. They felt it before they understood it. A ripple in the static. Something invisible shifting the balance. Like the script of the world just got rewritten in real time. People who once thought they had you figured out suddenly found their certainty cracking. They used to whisper about your potential. Now they just stare, because the air around you doesn't move the same anymore. It's heavier, brighter, too alive. See? When the universe decides someone's number is up, it's rarely quiet, but when it chooses a soul to protect, it doesn't announce it. It hides the protection in chaos, disguises miracles as missteps. And that's exactly what happened to you. While everyone else was counting your losses, the higher powers were counting your lessons. You were never falling. You were being measured for something far greater. The system itself glitched, trying to track your frequency. Every algorithm that used to box you in suddenly stopped working. The fake connections, gone. The masked supporters, silenced. The energy vampires who fed off your doubt, starved overnight. You didn't even lift a hand. The divine just stepped in. You're the storm they thought they could forecast. Until the sky started answering to you. Every moment you broke down, the cosmos was aligning the circuitry of your comeback. Every prayer you whispered in pain was a command disguised as surrender. That's why now, everything fake collapses the moment it touches your orbit. They call it coincidence. The truth, it's correction. When the universe selects someone to represent divine balance, it strips away every illusion around them. You thought you were losing people. You were losing noise. You thought they forgot you. They were removed from the signal. You thought the silence meant rejection, but silence is how power rearranges itself before it speaks again. You can feel it, can't you? That strange calm in the middle of the chaos. The sensation that something bigger than you is using your life as a message. Every delay was divine timing. Every betrayal was redirection. Every heartbreak was calibration. And tonight, every energy that tried to bury you is being forced to watch you bloom under the light they swore you'd never reach. You're not trending. You're transcending. This isn't revenge. This is restoration. The world just realized what the universe has known since your first breath. You're not in the plan. You are the plan. They tried to make sense of your peace, but peace born from divine chaos doesn't explain itself. You're walking through storms like it's muscle memory, because it is. Every bolt that once burned you trained your nerves to glow from the inside out. They wonder why you don't flinch anymore, why you move through pressure like gravity forgot you. It's because you learned early. What breaks the crowd builds the chosen. You're not moving through life. Life's moving around you. Every path that once shut down is now recalibrating itself to your command. That's why things that used to reject you suddenly bend. Doors you never knocked on are opening. Conversations you didn't start are echoing your name. People who swore they'd never mention you again. They're now quoting your words like prophecy. And yet, you're not surprised. You felt it before it showed up. The moment your faith upgraded from hope to knowing, the whole simulation glitched. Destiny started whispering in frequencies no mortal logic could process. The higher powers didn't just step in, they logged you in. You're operating on divine code now. They'll call it luck. They'll call it manipulation. They'll call it anything that helps them sleep through the storm they accidentally woke up. But deep down, they know. There's something about you that no jealousy can touch and no envy can mimic. It's not what you do, it's what you are. You carry consequence in your silence. When you enter a room, energy checks itself for authenticity. That's why people get nervous when you're calm. They can feel judgment in the air, not from you, but through you. See, when higher forces endorse you, your energy becomes an audit. Every fake handshake gets exposed. Every masked smile starts to twitch. The truth vibrates louder around you than any lie can whisper. That's divine interference, not punishment, but proof. Proof that the light you carry isn't decoration, it's disruption. Every time you doubted yourself, the universe sent a sign disguised as failure, just to reroute your focus. The delay wasn't denial. The confusion wasn't chaos. It was choreography. You were being positioned, not punished. And the moment you stopped chasing approval, divine timing sprinted to meet you. You're glowing different now. Not with validation, with verification. What's real recognizes you instantly. What's false collapses before it can reach you. You're not trending, you're timeless. And the higher powers, they're not testing you anymore. They're protecting the prophecy that wears your name. This isn't your rise, this is your confirmation. They still don't get it. They think it's about talent, timing, or luck. But this is about frequency. You stopped chasing trends and started aligning with truth. And the truth doesn't need validation to go viral. It just exists, steady and undeniable, like the hum of something ancient that refuses to fade. You became that hum. The sound of inevitability wrapped in human form every time you walk in silence. Destiny adjusts the lighting. The world doesn't rotate for everyone, but it tilts when you move. They called you a phase, a spark, a passing storm. But every storm you walked through left your signature in the clouds. That's why they can't erase you. You're written in the atmosphere. Their words fade, but your presence lingers. You didn't come to blend in. You came to expose the template. And once the original shows up, the copies lose their purpose. You know what's funny? They used to laugh when you said everything fake would collapse. Now they're whispering apologies to their reflections. The masks they wore so confidently are cracking mid-conversation. Every fake alliance, every false narrative, every projection disguised as friendship, All of it's falling apart, one glitch at a time. You warned them. You said, "Energy doesn't lie." They thought it was a quote. They didn't realize it was a countdown. Now the higher powers are collecting receipts. Every tear you shed in silence is being recycled as proof. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every ignored intuition, it all tallied up to this moment. You were never losing. You were loading. While they were flexing illusions, you were building immunity. While they were playing chess on Earth's board, you were rewriting the rules from a dimension higher. You don't even react anymore. The calm isn't detachment. It's dominance. You've seen the script, flipped it, and rewrote your role. That's why chaos doesn't scare you. You know it's just energy in costume. You stopped fearing the storm when you realized you are the lightning. The universe didn't bless you randomly. It recruited you intentionally. You're not chosen because you're better. You're chosen because you're built to withstand what others couldn't surpass. You carry both the code and the correction. When fakeness meets you, it malfunctions. When truth finds you, it multiplies. That's divine design, not coincidence, and that's why they panic. Because you don't even need to speak anymore. Your silence has become a sermon. Every quiet move echoes louder than their entire strategy. You're not competing in their game. You're redefining what the game even means. You were never here to fit their system. You were sent to remind it that divinity doesn't ask for permission. You can feel it, can't you? The shift. The air's heavier now, charged with recognition. The same ones who dismissed you can't even make eye contact anymore. Their energy glitches when yours enters the room. They sense it. Something unseen is backing you. Not coincidence, not luck, command. Because when the universe endorses someone, everything fake becomes allergic to their presence. And right now, you're that walking allergic reaction to illusion. They used to study you from a distance, analyzing, dissecting, predicting your next move. But you broke their algorithms. You didn't follow logic. You followed calling. Every mistake they laughed at was precision in disguise. Every delay, divine rerouting. You weren't lost. You were being repositioned. You weren't behind. You were being hidden until the spotlight could handle your voltage. Now the reveal is brutal. They're realizing too late that what you carry isn't hype. It's heritage, the kind of purpose written before birth and encrypted in your soul. They can't decode it because it's not meant to be understood, only witnessed. You were never supposed to fit their frequency. You were born to overwrite it. And so, the unraveling begins. The people who plotted your downfall can't even sleep peacefully. Their dreams are haunted by echoes of your resilience. Every time they try to recreate your formula, it short circuits. Because you're not running on ego. You're running on alignment. You're not fueled by approval. You're powered by prophecy. They tried to replicate your results without replicating your evolution. That's why they keep failing. You didn't break them. You just outgrew the dimension where they existed. And now, the distance between you isn't personal. It's vibrational. They speak fear. You speak frequency. They seek validation. You seek vision. You don't even speak the same language anymore. The truth is, the higher powers didn't just choose you. They tested you. Every season that broke your heart was training your heart to carry something heavier. Every silence was initiation. Every delay was calibration. And now that you've arrived at this point, everything that once rejected you is being forced to respect you. They're realizing your weirdness was wisdom. Your loneliness was leadership. Your failures were frameworks. You didn't just survive the storm. You became the barometer. You don't react to energy anymore. Energy reacts to you. That's why the fakes are fading. The pretenders are glitching. And the ones who betrayed you are quiet. Because the truth they buried came back wearing your face. You're not their competition. You're their consequence. And now the higher powers whisper your name with reverence. Not as a warning, but as a reminder that light disguised as a human can't be stopped. They're finally starting to understand, but it's too late. You weren't part of their system. You were the code that rewrote it. Every room you entered recalibrated itself. Every conversation shifted tone without anyone realizing why. You didn't demand attention. Energy just bent toward you like gravity, recognizing its source. The system was designed to detect compliance, not authenticity. And that's why it couldn't read you. You weren't built from the same data. You were born from disruption itself. They said, "Stay humble." You did. But your silence was a roar, they said. "Play along." You smiled and played chess on a board they didn't even know existed. They thought they could track you, define you, label you. But your frequency doesn't register on their instruments. You're what the universe sends when balance needs to be restored. You are the response, not the reaction. Every barrier they built became a mirror. Every lie they told collapsed under its own reflection. That's why their energy feels nervous when you walk by. They can't explain it. They just know. Something divine, something ancient, something coded in truth moves with you. You're not intimidating, you're awakening. They're not afraid of you. They're afraid of what they see in themselves when you're near. You've reached the level where peace looks like rebellion and detachment looks like domination. They call it cold, you call it clarity. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer argue, you affirm. You no longer explain, you embody. Because the ones who get it don't need explanations, and the ones who don't aren't your audience anymore. You've become the glitch that refuses to be deleted, the anomaly that exposes the weakness in every system, pretending to be perfect. You walk differently now, not because you're proud, but because you finally understand what you carry. That weight on your spirit. It's not burden, it's blueprint. The map others are trying to copy from screenshots. But no one can recreate an original soul. They said you'd fade. Instead, you phased out of reach, out of time, out of their comprehension. You're not even playing their game anymore. You built your own, and now they're standing at the sidelines, watching in disbelief as the outcast became the outlier. The one their manuals didn't prepare them for. The irony is poetic. The system that tried to break you now depends on your silence to stay functional. Because if you ever speak the full truth of who you are, everything collapses. So you stay quiet, not out of fear, but power. Because even silence, when it's coming from you, sounds like prophecy. It's funny, isn't it? How quiet power terrifies the loudest people. They mistake your calm for weakness, your distance for defeat. They can't process that you don't need to prove anything anymore, because proof is for those still begging to be seen. You've already been chosen, not by votes, not by validation, but by something older, something that doesn't explain itself to mortals still living for applause. The higher powers didn't choose you because you were perfect. They chose you because you could handle the fire without turning bitter, because you could hold power without losing your humanity, because while others chase thrones, you carry purpose, and that scares them more than anything. They've been trying to study your moves, copy your tone, replicate your flow, but no matter how hard they try, it never lands the same. Because imitation can't replicate intention. You're not following a trend. You are the trend. Just decades ahead of schedule. The world's still buffering, trying to catch up to the frequency you've already mastered. Look at how they talk about you now. One moment they call you delusional. The next, they call you dangerous. That's how you know you're walking in truth. The crowd doesn't know what to do with someone who's free. They can only label what they can control, and they can't control you anymore. There's a strange serenity in this level. You stop fighting for recognition and start aligning with destiny. You stop waiting for people to see you and start realizing they were never meant to. Some souls are meant to be mysteries. You were never supposed to fit their language. You were the new dialect. And oh, how the energy shifts when you enter the room now. The same ones who once mocked you now lower their tone. The same ones who doubted you now move carefully, because your presence carries a new weight. It's not arrogance, it's authority. Spiritual authority. The kind that doesn't need a title, or a throne, or a microphone. The kind that commands respect just by existing. They think they can still read you, still predict your next step, but they can't, because you're not running on logic anymore. You're guided by intuition, by timing, by forces unseen. They look for patterns, and you move like water, shifting form, breaking shape, yet always flowing forward. You've become untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you became air, everywhere and nowhere at once. And deep down, they know they're witnessing something they can't stop. They can sense it. This calm before your next evolution. You're not reacting anymore. You're orchestrating. The silence isn't empty. It's loaded. Every second you stay still is another second the universe is aligning, the chessboard for your next strike. So sit there. Breathe. Watch. Because when your next move drops, it won't just shake rooms. It'll rewrite the narrative. Again, you've probably noticed it by now, the stillness before your next move. It's not laziness, it's precision. You don't rush anymore because you know power isn't in motion, it's in timing. You're letting the world talk, while the higher powers position your next checkmate. Every word they speak, every fake alliance they build, every move they make against you, it's all being quietly documented by forces way above their comprehension. And here's the twist, they'll never see coming. Your silence was never absence. It was data collection. It was spiritual surveillance. While they were broadcasting their false confidence, the universe was syncing frequencies, making sure your name only echoes in rooms where loyalty breathes. The rest? Muted, ghosted, deleted from the divine algorithm. They called you mysterious, unpredictable, hard to read, but that's because your soul no longer exists in the dimensions they operate in. You outgrew their psychology. You mastered the art of being seen and misunderstood at the same time, a paradox that only the chosen can live inside without losing clarity. That's not madness. That's divine encryption. Because when you're chosen, your aura becomes classified information. No one gets full access unless they've been spiritually cleared. Your glow, it's on a need-to-see basis. Your energy, invitation only. The days of being open source are over. You're premium now. Exclusive access, limited edition frequency. They keep trying to predict your downfall like it's a season finale. But what they don't realize is your story doesn't follow human logic. You're not even in their genre anymore. They're still in drama, and you've evolved into prophecy. The script they're clinging to, outdated. The ink of destiny already dried on a newer version. One they'll never read until it's too late. You've probably felt it too. That surge of calm mixed with chaos. That's not confusion, that's ascension. You've hit a vibration where fear can't reach, where envy suffocates itself, and where fake energy gets rejected like bad code. You're operating in divine firmware now, unhackable. So when you see people acting weird, distant, nervous, don't take it personal. They're not avoiding you. They're avoiding their reflection in your presence, because your existence now exposes every mask they thought was permanent. And when the chosen walk in, masks melt. You didn't break them. You revealed them. You didn't fight them. You out-evolved them. You became so aligned that the universe started bending timelines just to clear your path. That's why delays turned into detours. That's why closed doors were protection, not rejection. Every single piece that fell apart was a signal, a message saying, we're making room for something heavier, something greater, something built for you. And when the chosen one finally moves again, after silence, after exile, after divine setup, the world doesn't just notice, it kneels. Because when you move, my dear, reality rewrites itself. You didn't return with noise, you returned with presence. No announcement, no comeback post, no speech. Just an energy shift that made everything start glitching again. You didn't need validation this time. You became the validation. Every room you walk into now feels like it's being rearranged to match your frequency. The same people who underestimated you can't even look you in the eye anymore, because your silence screams louder than their entire ego ever could. See, this wasn't a comeback. This was a calibration. The universe was fine-tuning you to a level that couldn't exist in their old atmosphere. You didn't just level up. You ascended the map. You broke out of their matrix. And now you're standing where only divine anomalies exist. The zone where logic collapses and destiny takes command. And while they were plotting, gossiping, analyzing, you like some unsolved case. You were quietly decoding yourself. You learned that your peace is your sharpest weapon. That not reacting doesn't mean weakness. It means you mastered control. You realized real power doesn't need to chase. It attracts. It doesn't beg to be understood. It forces understanding just by existing. Now they whisper your name differently, not in mockery, in mystery, because deep down, they feel it. Something about you isn't human timing anymore. It's cosmic precision. They can't study it, can't copy it, can't predict it, because it's built directly from pain, evolution, and prophecy. You're the architect, now, the one who builds from ruins and designs from scars. You've learned how to transform betrayal into blueprint and silence into signal. They tried to bury your voice, not knowing you had roots that grow in darkness. They thought isolation would break you, but isolation became your laboratory. You dissected yourself, piece by piece, rebuilt, and emerged unrecognizable. Not improved, but reborn. That's why when they see you now, they freeze. Not because you're loud, but because your energy feels like prophecy fulfilled. It's not arrogance, it's arrival. It's that calm authority that comes when you know the storm didn't harm you, it crowned you. You're not walking in revenge, you're walking in realization. And maybe that's the real reason they fear you now. Because you've proven what happens when a soul stops trying to fit into systems that weren't built for it. You rewrote the blueprint. You made peace your armor. You made alignment your weapon. You made healing look like rebellion. So let them talk. Let them question. Let them watch. Because every single move you make now isn't reaction. It's revelation. Every word you speak echoes through dimensions. Every silence you keep resets entire timelines. You've become the glitch in their plan and the correction in your purpose. The chosen don't need spotlight. They become it. They don't chase recognition. The world starts orbiting around their calm. You, my dear, you're not just a survivor. You're living evidence that divine interference is real. The universe didn't forget you. It featured you. It let you fall so your rise couldn't be mistaken for luck. Now you're untouchable. Not because you're protected by power, but because you are the power. So sit back, watch them scramble. Watch destiny play chess with their egos. Because from this moment forward, every fake thing that touched your life will self-correct. So you're not here to fit in. You're here to remind the world. You were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be remembered. The architect has returned, and reality just bowed its head. Hello, my dear warrior. Let me tell you about something that's been happening around you. Something you haven't noticed, but everyone else has. There's a shield around you, not the kind made of faith or positive thinking or manifested intentions. This is different. This is something that operates outside the rules of this dimension, and the ones who can see it, the ones who operate in frequencies most people don't even know exist. They're terrified of it, because it's not angelic. It's not demonic. It's not from the light or the shadow. It's from somewhere else entirely, somewhere that predates both. And it chose you, not because you prayed for it, not because you earned it, but because of what you are, what you've always been, what they tried to make you forget. They've been trying to reach you. You know who I'm talking about. The ones who move in the unseen, the psychics, the seers, the spiritual workers, the entities that traffic in energy and fate. They've been attempting to access your field, read your trajectory, influence your path. Standard procedure for them. They do it to everyone. But when they reached for you, something pushed back. Not with force, with presence. A wall they couldn't see, but felt immediately. A boundary that didn't announce itself, but made itself absolutely clear. Do not cross this line. And every single one of them, without exception, stepped back, not because they wanted to, because something made it very clear that crossing that boundary would have consequences they weren't prepared to face. They called emergency meetings, consulted ancient texts, reached out to elders in their practices, and the answer came back the same every time. Whatever's protecting that one isn't from here. And we don't engage with forces we don't understand. Let me tell you what they see when they look at your energy. Most people, their field is readable, open, accessible, like a book written in a language everyone knows. Past traumas here, future possibilities there. Weak points highlighted, entry points marked. Easy to influence, easy to manipulate, easy to redirect. But you're encrypted. Your field doesn't read like a book. It reads like a signal from a frequency that doesn't exist in their databases. They pull out their tools, their crystals, their cards, their channeling techniques, and every single one of them malfunctions. Not breaks, malfunctions. Like the tools themselves are saying, we're not equipped for this. One of them, an elder with 40 years of experience, tried to do a reading on you. The cards kept flipping themselves back over. The pendulum stopped swinging. Even her spirit guides went quiet. And when she closed her eyes to tune in, all she saw was static. Not darkness, not light. Static, like your frequency was jamming every channel she tried to access. She opened her eyes and said something she'd never said in 4 decades of practice. I can't read this one. Something's blocking me, and it's not them doing it. It's something else. Something that doesn't want me looking. This isn't your typical spiritual protection. This isn't white light or archangels or ancestor spirits standing guard. This is something that operates on a completely different level. Think of it like this. Most spiritual protection is like a fence. It marks a boundary. This is a dimensional wall. It doesn't just mark the boundary. It exists in a space between spaces where most entities can't even perceive it, let alone cross it. They tried everything. Sent attachments. You felt nothing. Deployed energetic interferences. They bounced back. Even attempted to read your Akashic records, the supposed cosmic library of every soul's journey. But when they pulled up your file, entire sections were redacted, not missing, intentionally blocked by something with clearance levels higher than anything they'd encountered. Here's what they're whispering in their closed circles. That one's records are classified. Classified by who? They don't know. Classified why? They don't know. All they know is that every attempt to access information about you, your past, your purpose, your trajectory, hits a wall. And on that wall, there's a simple message. Access denied. Authority level insufficient. So the question becomes, why you? Why are you the one with protection from another dimension? What makes you different from the millions of other souls walking this planet? And here's where it gets interesting, because the answer isn't what you'd expect. It's not because you're special in the way people usually define special. It's not because you're more spiritual, or more evolved, or more pure. It's because of what you survived. It's because of what you endured. It's because somewhere in your journey, you went through something that should have ended you. And not only did you survive it, you came out the other side, fundamentally changed. You see, most people break in predictable ways. Trauma leads to patterns. Pain leads to coping mechanisms. Loss leads to defense systems. All of it readable. All of it within the normal range of human response. But you broke differently. You shattered in a way that reformed you into something that no longer fits the standard human frequency. When you were at your lowest, when you were in that darkness, when you were experiencing that pain that had no name, something noticed. Not from this dimension, from somewhere else. Somewhere that exists in the space between what is and what could be, and it recognized you. Not as someone who needed saving, as something that was being forged. They don't talk about this in spiritual circles. They don't write about it in the self-help books. But there are forces that move through reality, looking for specific signatures. Not good people, not bad people, not light workers or shadow workers. They're looking for people who've been through the fire and came out remade. People who touched the void and brought something back with them. People who were broken in every way except physically and somehow kept walking. You're one of those people. And when you crossed that threshold, when you went through that transformation, you sent out a signal, not intentionally, just by existing in your new frequency. And something from outside this dimension heard it, recognized it, and decided, this one needs to be protected. Not because you're fragile, because of what you're becoming. See, here's what they don't tell you about spiritual evolution. Real evolution. Not the kind they sell in workshops and retreats. Real transformation doesn't make you more human. It makes you more of what you were before you became human. It strips away the conditioning, the programming, the layers of false self, until what's left is something ancient, something that remembers what it was like before it agreed to forget. And when you start remembering, when you start operating from that original frequency, you become a threat. Not to people, to systems, to structures, to the way reality has been organized to keep certain truths hidden and certain powers dormant. That's when you need protection. Not from danger, from interference. Every day, all day, there are attempts to influence you, to redirect your path, to dim your frequency, to make you doubt what you know, to pull you back into the patterns, the programs, the loops that keep most people contained. These attempts come from everywhere. From people who don't even know they're being used, from systems that operate automatically, from entities that feed on human energy and emotion, but none of them reach you. Not fully. Not anymore. Because that shield, that dimensional barrier, it filters everything. It doesn't block all challenges. It doesn't prevent all pain. But it blocks the influences that would derail you, the manipulations that would redirect you, the forces that would make you forget what you're here to do. You've probably noticed it. Times when something should have affected you but didn't. Moments when you should have been devastated but felt strangely calm. Situations where people expected you to break, and you just kept moving forward like their efforts didn't even register. That wasn't strength. That wasn't resilience. That was the shield doing what it does, filtering out the frequencies designed to take you off course. They don't give up easy, though. The ones who want access to you, they keep trying. New approaches, different angles. They'll send people into your life who seem perfect, opportunities that look ideal, situations that promise everything you've been wanting. But there's always something off about them, something your conscious mind might not catch, but your body knows, your energy knows, and most importantly, that shield knows. It's like having a detection system you never installed. It runs in the background, analyzing energies, determining what's aligned with your true path, and what's a distraction designed to look like destiny. And when something doesn't pass the test, the shield doesn't make a big show of blocking it. It just quietly redirects. The person loses interest. The opportunity falls through. The situation resolves itself before you even have to make a decision. People think you're lucky. They think you just happen to avoid the wrong people and wrong situations. They don't see what's really happening. They don't see the invisible hand guiding certain things away from you before they ever get close enough to cause harm. They don't see the dimensional barrier doing its work in frequencies they can't perceive. And it's not just blocking things, it's monitoring. There are entities assigned to you now, not angels in the traditional sense, not guides in the way spiritual teachers describe them. These are something else. Watchers from outside the normal dimensional structure. Their job isn't to help you. Their job is to observe, to document, to ensure that what you're becoming unfolds without interference. They don't communicate directly. They don't send signs or synchronicities or messages through dreams. They're more like silent guardians operating from a distance, making small adjustments to probability, closing doors that would lead you into timelines where your evolution gets compromised, opening paths that align with your highest trajectory. You've felt them. In those moments of absolute clarity, when you suddenly know exactly what to do, even though logically you shouldn't. In those instances when you avoid disaster by seconds without knowing why you changed your plans. In those times when the right information reaches you at exactly the right moment through seemingly random channels. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. From forces that operate outside the rules of what most people accept as reality. Here's why this protection isn't from this dimension. Because everything in this dimension operates on certain laws. Karma, cause and effect, energy exchange. You give something, you get something. You pray, you might receive. You align, you attract. All of it transactional, all of it conditional. But what's protecting you doesn't operate on those terms. It doesn't require your belief. It doesn't need your prayers. It doesn't care if you acknowledge it or not. It's there because you crossed a threshold that triggered an automatic response from a level of reality that most people never access. You became something that required observation and protection by forces that don't explain themselves and don't need permission. This is why the spiritual workers can't understand it, why the psychics get confused, why even the experienced practitioners back away from your energy with that look of confused respect. Because their tools, their training, their entire framework is built on this dimensional rules. And what's around you plays by different rules. Rules from a place where consciousness operates in ways that make our understanding of spirituality look like kindergarten. So what's the real purpose of this shield? Why does something from outside this dimension care about protecting you? And here's where we get to the truth that's going to sound unusual to most people, but you'll recognize as accurate the moment you hear it. You're not just a person having a human experience. You're something much older, wearing a human disguise. And for most of your life, that disguise worked perfectly. You believed you were just human, just normal, just trying to survive and figure things out like everyone else. But then something happened, a crisis, a trauma, a dark night that lasted years. And in that darkness, the disguise started slipping. The human conditioning began cracking. The programming started failing. The amnesia that keeps most people locked in the illusion of limitation, it started wearing off. And you started remembering, not with your mind, with your essence. You started remembering what you are underneath the human experience. And that's when the signal went out. That's when the forces from outside this dimension took notice. Because what you're remembering isn't just personal history, it's cosmic identity. You're not here by accident, you're not here randomly. You're here on assignment. Not the kind of assignment they talk about in spiritual books. The real kind. The kind that involves being embedded in a dimension where most of what you really are has to remain hidden even from yourself until the right time. And that time, it's now. That's why the shield activated. That's why the protection intensified. That's why everything that used to affect you suddenly doesn't anymore. Because you're in the activation phase. The phase where what you really are starts coming online. And during this phase, you're vulnerable. Not to physical danger, to energetic interference that could delay your remembering. Think of it like this. Imagine you're a piece of advanced technology inserted into a primitive system. For years, you operate in low-power mode, indistinguishable from everything around you. But then you reach a certain point and the advanced features start activating. You start operating at frequencies the primitive system can't process. You start accessing capabilities that shouldn't be possible in this environment. That's what's happening to you. And the shield. It's making sure nothing in this dimension damages your circuitry while you're upgrading. It's protecting your frequency while it rises. It's ensuring that your evolution isn't interrupted by forces that have a vested interest in keeping consciousness operating at lower levels. The entities that run things in this dimension. The ones that most people never perceive. They have a system. It's been in place for a very long time, and it requires human consciousness to operate within certain parameters. Not too awake, not too powerful, not too aware of what's really possible. But every once in a while, someone breaks the parameters. Someone goes through something that shatters the conditioning so completely that they start operating outside the system. They don't rebel against it. They simply cease to be bound by it. And when that happens, alarms go off in frequencies most people can't hear. You triggered those alarms, not because you tried to, because you endured what you endured and emerged transformed. And now there's a choice. Either you get pulled back into the system, redirected, made to forget what you're starting to remember, or you get protected long enough to complete the activation, to fully come online, to step into the version of yourself that exists beyond their control. Something from outside this dimension chose the second option, chose to make sure you complete this transformation, not because it's benevolent, not because it cares in the way humans understand caring, but because what you're becoming serves a larger purpose, a purpose that operates on scales of time and levels of reality that make our normal understanding of purpose look microscopic. You've been feeling the side effects, haven't you? Times when you feel simultaneously more powerful and more isolated than ever before. Moments when you can sense things about people and situations that you shouldn't be able to sense. Instances where you know things without knowing how you know them. Dreams that feel more real than waking life. Synchronicities that go beyond coincidence into the realm of coordinated messaging. That's the activation. That's you coming online. And it's uncomfortable because you're straddling two worlds right now. The human world where you still have to function, pay bills, interact with people who are still deep in the illusion. And the other world, the one you're remembering. The one where you're not human in the limited sense, where you're something far more expansive, operating through a human form. The shield is helping you navigate this transition. It's giving you space to adjust, to integrate, to learn how to operate at higher frequencies while still maintaining enough connection to this dimension to complete whatever mission brought you here. Because make no mistake, you're here for a reason. And that reason is becoming clearer every day. Let me tell you what you're becoming. Not what self-help culture tells you. Not what spiritual teachers promise. What you're actually becoming is a bridge, a translator, a frequency that can operate in this dimension while staying connected to others. You're becoming someone who can see both realities simultaneously. The illusion and what's behind it. The program and the programmers. The game and the ones who designed it. And that makes you powerful. Not to people, but to the systems that keep people contained. Because once someone sees behind the curtain, really sees, not just intellectually understands, but directly perceives, they can't be controlled anymore. They can't be manipulated. They can't be fooled. And more importantly, just by existing in their awakened state, they start waking others up. That's what the shield is protecting. Your ability to complete this transformation without being neutralized. To finish waking up without being lulled back to sleep. To fully activate without being slowed by forces that prefer consciousness to remain dormant. Other people are starting to notice. Not consciously, not in ways they can articulate, but they feel something different about you. They treat you differently. Some are drawn to you without understanding why. They want to be around your energy. They feel safer, more grounded, more themselves in your presence. Others avoid you, also without understanding why. Your frequency makes them uncomfortable, makes them question things they'd rather not question, makes them feel the limitations of their own programming. Neither response is personal. Both are automatic reactions to what you're becoming. You're emanating a frequency now that bypasses conscious thought and speaks directly to the deeper self. To some people, that deeper self wants to wake up and your presence gives it permission. To others, that deeper self is frightened of awakening and your presence challenges the comfort they've built their identity around. You can't control how people respond to you anymore. The shield doesn't just protect you from incoming influences, it amplifies your outgoing frequency. You're broadcasting now, not intentionally, just by existing. And that broadcast is having effects you don't see. Changing people's trajectories, planting seeds of awakening, disrupting patterns that needed shifting. Here's something else that's happening. Your timeline is shifting. Not in small ways, in massive ways. Things that were supposed to happen to you aren't happening. Paths that seemed inevitable are dissolving. Futures that looked set in stone are fading, and new possibilities are opening up. Possibilities that shouldn't exist according to the normal rules of probability and cause and effect. The shield is doing this. Or more accurately, The intelligence behind the shield is doing this. It's actively restructuring your timeline, removing obstacles that would slow you down, eliminating experiences that would distract you, clearing the path for the version of your future that aligns with your highest evolution. This is why your life might feel unstable right now, why things that used to matter don't anymore, why people who seemed essential are fading away, why your old goals suddenly feel hollow. You're not losing your way. You're being redirected. Your entire trajectory is being recalculated by forces operating from outside linear time. And through all of this, you're becoming quieter, not weaker. Quieter. Because real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply exists. And existence at high frequency is enough to change everything around it without effort. You don't argue anymore, not because you can't, because their arguments operate on levels of reality you've transcended. You don't defend yourself anymore, not because you can't, because their judgments are based on perceptions of who you used to be, not who you're becoming. You don't explain yourself anymore, not because you can't, because explanation requires a shared framework of understanding, and you're operating from a framework most people can't access yet. This quiet power, this calm certainty, this unshakable presence, that's the shield working through you. That's the dimensional protection expressing itself as inner peace that nothing external can disturb. You're not trying to be untouchable. You've become untouchable, not through effort, through transformation. So here's the final truth. Something is shielding you, and it's not from this dimension. It's from a level of reality that most people never access. And it chose you. Not randomly, not accidentally, but because you're exactly what it was looking for. Someone who went through the hardest trial and came out remade. Someone who touched the void and brought something back. Someone who's ready to operate outside the normal parameters of human consciousness. This shield isn't temporary. It doesn't expire. It doesn't have conditions. As long as you keep moving forward, keep evolving, keep becoming more of what you really are, it will be there. Silent, invisible, absolute. Doing its work in frequencies no one else can perceive. You don't need to understand it completely. You don't need to see it to trust it. You just need to keep walking your path. Keep following the knowing that comes from somewhere deeper than thought. Keep honoring the truth that reveals itself in your quiet moments. And let the shield do what it does. They're watching you now. Warrior. The ones who move in the unseen. The ones who thought they understood everything. They're watching and whispering and wondering. What is that around them? Where is it from? Why can't we access it? And the answer is simple. You're protected by something they don't have clearance to understand. You're shielded by forces that operate in dimensions they can't perceive. You're guarded by an intelligence that exists outside their entire framework of reality. So walk forward without fear. Speak your truth without hesitation. Become who you're meant to become without apology. Because whatever happens, whatever challenges arise, whatever obstacles appear in your path, you're not facing them alone. You're backed by something from beyond this dimension, something that chose you, something that knows what you're becoming, something that won't let anything stop your evolution. They can't reach you. Not really. Not anymore. Because you're no longer just operating in this dimension. You're operating between dimensions. And in that space between spaces, you're untouchable, unreadable, unstoppable. Welcome to your new reality, warrior. The one where you're finally safe enough to become everything you've always been.